Those who will regulate AI will lose the race. There is a lot of misconception out there about what AI actually is and what its capabilities are.
Igor Portugal, an AI and cybersecurity expert, technology innovator and author. He is a sought-after thought leader and influencer in the tech industry. If you describe the journey for me on a graph, how would that look like?
It would be like an exponential curve, and it's slowly accelerating faster and faster and faster.
So can AI enhance cybersecurity?
Absolutely.
How?
So one of the challenges that we have in cybersecurity world is in order to...
What are the risks of AI in warfare and security?
The risks of not having AI with warfare and security is that the enemy will develop superior AI systems. That is, to me, is the main risk. What AI is now enabling bad actors to do is impersonate much better. The lines have now blurred between what looks legitimate and...
How do we prevent it from being in the hands of the bad guys?
We can't. The only way you can do it is...
Quick one, Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. One thing that you can do for me is to please hit the subscribe button below. A lot of people who come and watch this podcast or listen to the podcast are not subscribers. And so we're trying to increase our subscriber base. We are wanting to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I promise you that if you hit subscribe, I'm going to work hard to make sure that my episodes are really good. That will get better and better. So, do we have a deal? Okay, back to the episode. Igor, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Mina.
You're now a founder of a number of enterprises and...
I wouldn't call them enterprises yet, but companies, yes.
Companies. What made you be involved in those? And what is it that you are like really good and known for as an expert?
I've started my first business here in New Zealand in 1998. I walked into a computer store and started chatting to the sales guy who happened to be the owner of the computer shop. And at the time, I was a software developer working for a New Zealand Steel developing software for the steel finishing plant and looking at different IT departments, how they work and things like that. And I was looking for a business opportunity. It was the late 90s. The entrepreneurship in IT was just only being created. It was a big .com era, and everybody was looking at what's happening internationally. So I thought I'd love to be in business. So I started talking to this computer guy, and I've asked him a question: do you ever get business customers here? And he said, yeah, we do. And do you provide them with some sort of IT support? He said, well, no, we don't. So I've proposed to him that we'll set up an IT support business. And that was my first foray into business. And I just happened to really enjoy it. I happened to really, really get into it. My first success was a company called Asterisk. It was New Zealand's first Linux specialist practice. We were specializing in implementing open source Linux technology in a business setting. At the time, Microsoft was a dominant operating system in the business setting in New Zealand. There were Unix systems that larger businesses used to use, and Linux wasn't looked at as a serious business alternative. And so creating that support infrastructure and ability to implement a different operating system with a different set of opportunities that it brought to business was really seen as a bit innovative at the time. Of course, now Linux is everywhere. It's the Android operating system fundamentally is Linux, so half of the mobile phones run that, and more than 50% of cloud servers for different applications run on Linux. But back in the day, it was considered to be quite a niche thing.
Yep. And what's it worth now?
So it's hard to say, because at the time I sold it, it was valued at about $1 million, and it was 2003. But the company that acquired it was a company called GNI. And a year later, GNI itself was acquired by Telecom New Zealand, which is now Spark. So wherever that little speck inside the Spark empire is whatever it's worth, I suppose. But
what do you think it's worth now?
I don't know. It's really hard to judge. It's hard to judge. What I can tell you is that we used to have a competitor in Wellington called Catalyst IT. They were doing the same thing as Asterisk was doing. They started about the same time as I started Asterisk. And at the time I sold Asterisk, they were slightly bigger than us, maybe about 30% bigger than us. Catalyst today is about 400 people. And they are in 5 countries around the world.
Wow.
They're still running, owned by the original owners. I think they'd probably be worth anywhere between 50 and 100 million. So if I didn't sell, maybe that's where we would have been right now. But
do you regret selling?
No, not at all. I never.
Why did you sell?
Never regret selling a business.
Why did you sell the business?
The question should be not why do you sell, but why do you start a business? And one of the most favorite conversations I have with young entrepreneurs is finding out the reasons people start businesses. To me, a lot of business failure is due to people starting businesses for wrong reasons. Quite often, you see entrepreneurs that start their own businesses because they think they know better than the boss, or they don't want to have the boss. To me, that's a wrong reason to start a business. But one of the right reasons to start a business is to make money or to build an asset. One of the common complaints amongst population in New Zealand that you have is that it's really hard to get away in New Zealand, to get ahead in New Zealand. It's really hard to save up to buy a house. It's really hard to get a little nest egg for your retirement. Well, New Zealand is a country of entrepreneurs, and starting small businesses is a way to get ahead, because you can create revenue, you can create something that pays you income, but at the same time, business grows in value. And that value, the business shares, is what is creating that savings and that value outside of your day-to-day work. Now, in order to create something valuable, there has to be someone willing to buy it. So if you build a business which heavily relies on you being there, a business that nobody else wants to buy, then it's not really a business, it's not really value that you're building. So the only way you know that you're building value is if somebody can walk in and give you a check for X amount of dollars, and you can hand it over and they'll be happy to have it.
Okay.
So that's something that I've learned fairly early on in business. And then it becomes fairly transactional. So I've got something to sell. If it's worth selling, then you sell it.
So why did you sell it?
Somebody came to me with a good check.
Okay.
And I took it. So I sold my first business, which gave me a deposit for the house.
Well, that's good. I'm going to shift to a completely different subject now. And when I get stuck into AI, I want to talk about, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is used by most people at the moment, if not most people or everybody. Where are we at now with the AI revolution? Are we just about to start, or have we already started in our, moving fast on the train? And how fast are we moving, do you think?
I think It's a great question. But I think before I answer that, I would like to step back and just quickly review the fact, what is AI? Mm-hmm. There is a lot of misconception out there about what AI actually is and what its capabilities are. One probably little known fact is that AI is not something that was invented recently, and it was not it didn't come out of science fiction or fiction. Mm. The concept of artificial intelligence was developed in 1950s. And the first time it was discussed at a conference, I believe in 1956, where mathematical scientists at the time have proposed it. The difference between the artificial intelligence, or what we call now artificial intelligence, and the computer programs and computers, the way we used to use them throughout 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, is really the way the data is organized and managed. And the way the data is organized and managed in the traditional sense that we used to is a little bit like spreadsheet tables. So if you know how to use spreadsheet and put data into spreadsheet tables, that's really how we've been organizing data for the last 50 years. The artificial intelligence looks at organizing data more in a way our brain organizes it, and that's why they've termed it artificial intelligence. So rather than having it as a table, you have pieces of data with some loose association with them. The reason we haven't used that way of organizing the data for many, many years is because computers weren't powerful enough. And so computers simply caught up with this technology, and that's why this technology is now more and more widespread. Ever since computers started becoming powerful enough to process data in that way, this is the way we're starting to interact with data, and this is the way we started to process it and extract information out of data. So if you take all the mystery out of AI, you can now just rename AI into a type of software. It is software. And if we look at the way society had developed from 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and now, we inventing new ways to interact with computers, new ways to interact with software. We're bringing software, as wearables on our wrist. We are now all carrying mobile phones that are as powerful as computers used to be 5 or 6 years ago. We are carrying tablets where we don't need to carry a notepad with you anymore. You can just write things in the computer tablet. So more and more of our everyday tasks are being done with the help of computers. This is not new. There is no tipping point. It's all natural progression of where technology is taking us and where technology is developing.
Where are we at now with the AI revolution? Are we just beginning, or are we just going back to my question? Are we just beginning, or have we started already? Where are we at with the journey forward?
We're on the journey. We're on the journey that started in the 50s, and it's slowly accelerating faster and faster and faster.
So if you describe the journey for me on a graph, how would that look like?
It would be like an exponential curve. And we could be anywhere on that exponential curve, but that exponential curve is just going to keep shooting up.
How quick are we developing AI?
We're developing it fairly quick. We're developing technology fairly quick. Also, AI is not only one thing. AI is even the term AI is a multi-disciplined. There's multiple disciplines within AI.
Can you just quickly and briefly explain the different types of artificial intelligence? And is artificial intelligence the parent term that describes all these other different things that comes after it, or is artificial intelligence is part of something else?
So artificial intelligence, as I've just mentioned, is been coined as a term, and it's mostly referred to the way the data is organized. And then the technology that results from that is being used in different number of different disciplines. Mm-hmm. So first discipline is machine learning. And machine learning is where you organize the data and you learn. The machine uses that data to learn how these connections, what they actually mean, and how to utilize them, and how to connect them and produce different patterns and look for different patterns within those connections. That's a discipline called machine learning.
Can you tell me a bit more about how AI is moving through the revolution? Because people have been talking about mentioning a lot about the Industrial Revolution and how has changed how we live and work and be many, many years ago, and how the AI revolution now is even bigger and stronger and more scarier than the industrial. Could you explain maybe the Industrial Revolution in relation to AI, and how bigger is AI than that and why that is?
Well, I don't know if bigger is the right term. We certainly are living through a big revolution in how we work, what we consider work, and what we term work. Industrial Revolution was very similar. So most people before Industrial Revolution were working the land. They were farmers. The advent of factories changed, and the advent of production changed the way farmers and artisans worked, and created this massive different work style. And some of the issues of the Industrial Revolution came from simply people not adjusting well from one work style to another. For example, when you're on a farm, you work 24/7. You don't stop working. You don't start your work day. You don't stop your work day. You wake up, you do something, you go, you have your meal, you do something else, you go and have your leisure time, you go and do something else again. The farm doesn't stop, right? A lot of artisans used to live in the same way. They used to make art when they make art, live their life when they live their life. But when you suddenly start the factory and you turn up there and it's a production line and you have to work day in, day out, you produce a lot more, but that work was a lot harder. At the time, what neither workers nor employers really understood is that you can't just work 24/7. A lot of misconceptions around the exploitation at the time that came in, they weren't actually exploitations. They were people misunderstanding how to deal with a new way of working, how to deal with a new way of producing goods and services. We worked it out. We created the 8-hour workday. We created a new style of working. Fast forward 150 years, we now have computers. Our communications have changed. Some of the things that people used to do manually, we now have robotics that do those tasks. So we are living truly in an age where what it is to be working is again getting redefined. And that also redefines the lifestyle, the working lifestyle for us. For example, if you work from home and if you work on your computer predominantly, does it make sense to start your workday now at 9 a.m. and finish at 5? For some jobs it is, for some jobs it isn't. But then if it isn't, how do you then balance your work life and your family life? And how do you coexist with people who still have that 9 to 5 work mentality that was created and carries from the Industrial Revolution? So there's a lot of society questions. There's a lot of considerations that are come into play that are kind of fascinating and new.
How quick are we moving forward when it comes to developing artificial intelligence, do you think?
So technology is moving forward very fast. It's an exponential curve, right? So we started in the 40s and 50s when we started creating computers. Computers have increased. Artificial intelligence in itself has a number of different disciplines. You've got the neural networks, you have machine learning, machine vision, deep learning, robotics, which is also part of the artificial intelligence. And then the new thing, which is what created this whole buzz in the society, is generative AI or large language models. That's a new discipline in AI, but it actually combines a number of different disciplines, which is the natural language processing, deep learning, and neural networks all together.
So to bring it down to real terms for people who are, your average engineer or lawyer, everybody now is using ChatGPT. Where does ChatGPT sit in those terms that you were mentioning?
ChatGPT is a large language model it uses a large language model called GPT-4o or GPT-4. And it does combine the neural network, deep learning, and natural language processing all at once. And now with a DALL-E and the ability to generate images and understand images, it also combines elements of machine vision.
A lot of people are really worried about their jobs, understandably, the future of work and how AI is going to reshape the industries. How do you think AI is going to impact on the job market?
There's been a study done on 100 years worth of technological improvement, actually from the Industrial Revolution, that clearly demonstrated that technological improvement increases employment. And AI is no different. To me, AI creates more jobs. It changes a lot of old jobs to be something new. But what AI does is it's a great equalizer. So if you think about a ChatGPT, somebody with a less skill base can pick up ChatGPT and do a more skilled job right now, which means more people can be employed and can be productive. Robotics combined with artificial intelligence. For example, if you think about people with diseases like Stephen Hawking, for example, who could talk to us through a computer. The famous examples of communication with Stephen Hawking through a computer was very robotic, right? But right now, computer speech processing is getting to the point where you can talk to the computer and you wouldn't even know that you're not talking to a human. That is a huge advantage to someone who is deaf or have speech disability. It is the ability to bring them fully in the workforce. So I've actually wrote a thesis last year where I've demonstrated that AI will bring us as a society to full employment. The term employment will be redefined, but I view employment as humans creating value for humans. And I believe that ultimately nobody will be left behind, and everyone will have the ability to create.
What about the doctors and the medical field? How are they going to be impacted by AI, artificial intelligence?
Everyone will be impacted.
How will specifically doctors' diagnoses, looking at symptoms and things like that, how is that going to look like in about 5 years' time? Or even now, where do you see this technology being implemented and affecting this sector and this industry?
I can't pretend to have a crystal ball, right? I can't pretend to know what the future holds. Anybody who does really, they're misleading. What I do know is that every job, including doctors, will be redefined. But what I also know is right now we have a shortage of doctors. We have a shortage of medical professionals. One of the things that AI already is doing is it's helping doctors do better diagnosis, and in some instances, artificial intelligence can do better diagnosis than the doctor. What it means is that if you want to verify the diagnosis or the treatment, perhaps you will not need to have as many qualifications as right now we're demanding from the doctors. So potentially nurses or medical practitioners with lower qualifications will be able to do some of these higher skilled jobs that doctors are doing with the help of the AI. That will create more doctors. Hopefully, that will reduce the workload that we have on super qualified doctors right now and make healthcare much more accessible and affordable to everybody. Ideally, I'd like to see the wait times eliminated. If somebody needs a medical procedure or if somebody needs a treatment, they should get it straight away. And what I believe that this technology will enable us to do is enable us to get more access to more treatment. The only barrier that's going to be in the way is the government legislation. If the government going to keep the regulation based on the old technology, they're going to destroy those opportunities for us. But if the deregulation happens to be in step with technology, I believe there will be more accessible healthcare for more people. And yes, the way, what and who we call a doctor and what will be available from those doctors will change drastically. Their work style, their work ethic, and their work day will change. Will they be less in demand? I don't think so.
There's a whole debate now about AI, artificial intelligence, having those ethical implications when it comes to AI and decision making. As you were saying, like AI is able to make a better decision about diagnoses, about a patient. But then, sensitive areas like healthcare and finance and law enforcement, using AI to make a really drastically important decision that could change someone's life if it's done wrong. So can AI really be trusted in those, in the decision making?
Can humans be trusted in those decision making?
Well, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I've seen lots of decisions go wrong with humans. That's besides the point. That's just an off-the-cuff remark. The reality is AI is not making decisions. Humans do. AI is a tool to take all of the data into consideration and provide the humans with a better picture to make those decisions. AI makes no decisions. The AI is not designed to make decisions. AI is designed to do the task. So, for example, I'll give you an example of where AI is going wrong, right? There's AI technologies being deployed right now in human resources in terms of recruitment. AI would go through the CVs and decide which CV works for the job and which doesn't. And there's lots, the world is littered with things like biases that AI deploys, AI not really understanding the CV very well, etc. So there are a lot of things that are going wrong, and they could go wrong. Now, if you look at what is actually going wrong, it's the people who deployed that AI. They are the ones that made the decision. They are the ones that said, if AI sees this, then Y will, if AI sees X, then Y will happen. They're the one that's given AI that setting, that parameter. They were the one that's implemented that bias, and they're the one that are missing out at the end of the day, because they are the ones that are not getting the quality candidates employed. They're getting dismissed. What will happen, like with any technology, settings will be altered, changed, reviewed. I've seen a lot of, going back to that HR example, I have seen AI HR systems being implemented and then being dismissed because whoever the managers realized, well, actually it's not serving our purpose. They will bring new systems in as they refine those settings and those parameters. So when you're talking about AI ethics, I think the ethics still lie with the humans and with the humans who deploy those systems.
So we're not going to be letting AI take a chance at someone's life and just go with whatever it says, but
we can't, because somebody needs to tell AI what to do. But let me give you this example. You're on a new planet, you're an astronaut, and you got hurt, and all you've got is an AI system that may be able to save your life. Are you really going to care?
Probably not.
Exactly. Yes, a lot of these considerations are there, but right now people are dying because they're waiting for medical treatment and aren't able to get that because the human doctors, who are the only ones who can do the job, are too busy. There's a lot of media and coverage of doctors turning to alcohol because they're so busy they can't cope with the workload that they've got. And this is the situation that we're in. If technology can help ease that situation for us, as a society, as a humanity, we ought to embrace it.
Mm.
Technology alone doesn't make any decisions. We do. We set those parameters. We set the decision. We tell it what decisions to make. We're in control.
One of the things that I really love about business is the fact that we can have an element of networking and community. See, I don't want to do anything in life that doesn't have community. I joined a new networking program called the Networking Group. The Networking Group is a collection of business owners and entrepreneurs and tradies here in New Zealand. The reason why I joined it is because I'm able to, every week, have a chance to show up and have a great conversation with at least 5 business owners, get to know who they are, get to know their businesses, and actually find out how can we do business together. I have loved this experience so far. I think it's been such a great chance to, just practice my presentation skills, because you have to get up and talk about your business or talk about what you do. It's helped me to practice my delivery and help me to share my mission to the world. It's been such a rewarding experience. And perhaps you might want to check them out. They are called the Networking Group, TNG, and you can find them online. Back to the episode. What about the risks of AI and warfare and security, like military application, the weapons, potentially cyber attacks being driven by AI to gain attention, these topics are getting attention? Yeah, what are the risks of AI in warfare and security?
So, the risks of not having AI with warfare and security is that the enemy will develop superior AI systems. That is, to me, is the main risk. But like anything, and like any tool in the wrong hands is always bad news. Nuclear bomb in the wrong hands, bad news. Autonomous killing machine in the wrong hands is just as bad of news as a nuclear bomb.
Mm.
AI is a technology that makes things faster and easier. And it makes it faster and easier for good guys as well as the bad guys. And unfortunately, it's just a fact of life.
How do we prevent it from being in the hands of the bad guys?
We can't. The only way you can do it is develop that technology in the hand of the good guys and make sure that the good guys step ahead. The arms race is not a new thing. The arms race is always going to be just that, the arms race. You cannot stop the arms race. It's absurd to talk about stopping the arms race, because the only way you can prevent someone from doing something is by having a bigger weapon than them, right? So that's a race.
Are we winning the race?
Well, it depends on who we. Someone's winning the race. It's a race.
When it comes to talking about regulation, though, this is a major subject, and there's 2 camps. Some people say we've got to regulate artificial intelligence, and other camp says that is a bad idea. Where do you sit on that?
I'm in a bad idea camp.
Why is it a bad idea to regulate AI?
To me, the reason it is a bad idea is exactly for the conversation we had just before about who's winning the race. Those who will regulate AI will lose the race. So you can't regulate, for example, what Kim Jong-un does with AI or Putin does with AI. You can only regulate what's happening in the West. They don't regulate on their side. We do. As soon as we regulate and they don't, they'll get ahead faster. That's how you lose the race.
Then obviously the other camp would say it is a bad idea to let it loose and have absolutely no boundaries in terms of how much you can use. For example, using AI, ChatGPT at schools. Mm-hmm. That's the simplest form of regulation. Just take it all the way down to those sort of environments. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's okay to just let children use AI however, whenever they want to use it for their school?
I think it's not okay to prevent them from using it because this is the future. Schools are to teach children.
So you're saying it's okay to use for children to use?
I don't just think it's okay. I think that we must encourage them to use it because this is their future, and schools are there to teach them what is coming in the future. If you start from stopping them from using the future tools, you're already producing disadvantaged teaching. It's not an education facility if you're not educating.
What about intelligence, like natural intelligence for children? Ability to think, come up with ideas, write, do an essay, answer questions. Those tools are being all done by ChatGPT. And I'm, parents listening to this thinking, I don't want my child to be stupid.
I haven't seen a single person who is using technology becoming stupid. Granted, there are certain abilities that we lose, but, I ask you a question. Can you build a hut and live in a hut? Would you?
It's different. It's a different argument.
No, it's not. It's technology. It's absolutely not different. It is a technological argument. We've come through the fact that we don't have to carry a stone 10 flights of stairs. We've got a crane that picks it up. But we've lost that ability to assemble 40 men and carry the stones up. Egyptians built pyramids by moving these stones miles and miles ahead. They were employing thousands of men to build that technology. We've lost that technology. We don't have it right now. If you suggest that somebody builds pyramids without the help of modern cranes or modern cars or modern vehicles, they wouldn't be able to do that. Does that make us stupider than them? I don't think so.
Do you think AI is dangerous?
No, I don't think AI is dangerous. I think any tool in the wrong hand is dangerous. There are people that are dangerous. Technology is not dangerous. We need to be careful with people. And back on what does need to be regulated or does not, the regulation is about who is able to use technology and how. If you use technology in a dangerous manner, well, then there should be a law to prevent you to harm other people.
I'd love to get into cybersecurity. I know that you're an expert in that field. You have been in that field for how long?
I've been in cybersecurity for over 20 years.
So you...
one way or another.
Know it pretty well.
Yes.
There's a lot of global tensions rising now when it comes to data security. I was listening to a conversation that you were having, and you were saying, is it time to elevate your data security to military standards? Are we talking about like our normal computers and phones and everyday gadgets here? Or are we talking about the multinational companies implementing this?
We're talking about everything.
Why do we need a military standard sense of security now?
It depends how you define the military standard sense of security. But if you
Why don't you define it for us?
I don't think that the military has any more magic in terms of their cyber defenses from, say, large corporation like Microsoft or Apple, right? Everybody has access to all the same cybersecurity defense tools or cybersecurity attack tools. What you need to understand is a few years ago, 5-10 years ago, attacking you was a meaningless exercise. There were very few reasons why somebody would attack another person's computer online. Usually it used to be either somebody playing or vengeance or something, or a silly reason. The difference today is the actors who attack can make financial gains or they can make political gains. There are actually real tangible gains that somebody can make out of attacking you. Mm. And so just like you wouldn't leave your house unlocked or car unlocked when you know that you live in the area where people have a gain to make by breaking in, that is the same thing about your computer or your phone.
So it's a significant issue in New Zealand because a lot of Kiwis are losing millions of dollars in scams.
Yep.
Perhaps this is more phishing, which is not the fishing of a rod, but phishing, so phishing scams.
Yep.
And obviously there's a relationship between phishing scams and AI. And I would like to delve into that sort of subject. And firstly clarify, is cybersecurity, this term, does it really mean phishing and scams? Does that part of it?
Absolutely. Phishing and scams is definitely part of cybersecurity. It's one of the disciplines. Yep. Educating, even in corporate cybersecurity, people are the weakest link. People are the link that attackers would exploit to get into corporate networks and to get into to extort corporate money. Phishing is a way of impersonating someone, and of course, generative AI is making faking someone you know so much easier. We used to have scams going around with all this Nigerian scams or other scams back in the day. You'd read them and you'd understand the language of the person that's written it is not up to scratch, and you could see the difference between a legitimate letter and something that came from an imposter or a bad actor. What AI is now enabling bad actors to do is impersonate much better. The lines have now blurred between what looks legitimate and what doesn't.
How is that happening at the moment? Without giving any advice to people who... giving tips.
Can't really give... well, I can give some tips. So, for example, if you...
So the question is, what are the common signs of phishing attempt and how can people spot it?
If you receive any unexpected communication, try and verify it in a different way. So if any communication that you receive is unexpected and would result in you handing over either money or any of your credentials or taking you places where you wouldn't normally go, whether it's online or physically. Before acting, verify that the communication is genuine and that it came from the person that you think it came from.
Yeah, but the trouble is sometimes what you get from people, like the text or the phone call, is so timely and it's so appropriate. And there are very subtle things that they would do that it will be so difficult for the average person to detect this is actually a bad... Because right now there's the banks have been presenting, having little... I've been watching some sort of ads from banks talking about scams and talking about how prevalent it is and how much it's happening. So, I mean, it's happening quite a lot right now. And clearly, because they're doing that now, clearly it's still happening and it's not going to stop. And so is it that people are finding it difficult to verify the messages? What can really people do? Like, we talked about common signs and stuff about a phishing attempt, like timeliness, like when is it going to happen, how it's going to look like. What else can people be looking out for that can be a bit of an alarming bell that this is not legit?
So first of all, let's talk about timely communication. If a communication is expected it's highly unlikely that it will be coming from a phishing or a bad actor. Highly unlikely. What is more likely to happen is it will be unexpected. First thing you can always do when something unexpected comes up is you can verify that the person that communicated to you is the same person. Use multiple channels of communication. This is where having multiple social media connections, multiple ways to communicate, like a phone, an email, and different ways to communicate, that will identify that the person that's communicating with you is actually the person that you think that is communicating with you.
So you're saying email them and phone call them and check?
Yeah, or use different social media. So for example, I had an approach last week from a friend whom I haven't seen for a while. It looked a little odd, and it came via LinkedIn. What I did is I went on Facebook. So the friend lives in a different country. And what I did is I went on Facebook, where we're also friends, and I reached out to him via Facebook. I said, "Hi, how are you? Did you really mean to say what you said on LinkedIn?" And as it happens, it was a genuine communication. But it could just as well not be. I have had friends communicating to me via Facebook, which was completely out of the blue, where I never talked to that friend on Facebook. What I do is I pick up the phone and I give him a call. "Did you really mean to send me that message on Facebook?" I said, "Oh, no. Really? Did I send you that?" And then we discover that either their account has been hacked or somebody trying to impersonate them, and it's actually not their account. So to me, what I now always do is if I get a communication, an unexpected communication from anybody, be it on a text, via a phone call, anywhere, I try and find a different way to connect to that person.
How else can you check? How else people can verify someone is legit?
Well, that's really the main way is just have multiple ways of communicating with people and double check. The other way is when usually the scammers initiate the connections with you, try and thwart it and connect back to them. So for example, if they called you and they're telling you that they're from a bank will never call you, right? But even on an off chance that they did, you can always say, "I'm going to call you back." Hang up, find the bank's phone number, dial them back, verify that it was the bank that actually called you.
How can people protect themselves online, especially when it comes to their financial information?
Well, one of the big things is right now, every service that uses login credentials offers multi-factor authentication and biometric authentication. Switch to that method as soon as you possibly can. So if you have any service that you still log in using login and password, look for multi-factor authentication, which is exactly what we're just talking about, how you authenticate the person that talking to. If it's really them, use multiple ways to communicate. Same with multi-factor authentication. It uses your mobile phone or it uses your fingerprint or your Face ID to authenticate you rather than login and password, which is something that somebody can steal and use instead of you.
I personally just can't stand two-factor authentication. I can't stand them. They're such a pain sometimes because it's so fidgety, and sometimes like you haven't got your phone on you sometimes, and they send you a text and your phone is not there, or just such a mess.
People used to make up really simple passwords so they can remember, or put passwords on a sticky note of their computer, and we sort of went away and understood that this is a really dangerous practice, right? So people now create more complicated passwords, but then remembering passwords is really hard.
And keeping them, you're going to have to keep them somewhere.
Exactly.
Because then if you write them down somewhere, would someone be able to access them?
Of course, that's the problem. And so what this multi-factor authentication enables you to do is to worry less about your passwords, because that text does verify that you are who you are. And it is a little inconvenient, but it is what it is. Now, technology is actually moving forward. So a lot of companies are now implementing biometric authentication. So rather than...
Can you just describe for us biometric authentication?
Okay, so for example, your phone, if you're on an iPhone, you have Face ID. If you're on an Android, a lot of them still have finger ID authentication or even Face ID authentication. That is your biometrics. So rather than sending you a text, what a lot of websites are now doing is they're integrating into your phone's authentication system and let your phone verify independently that you are who you are. Same happens with your laptop. So a lot of laptops now have fingerprint scanners built in. That's a biometric authentication. So anything that's your body, that's a biometric authentication. With a fingerprint ID on the computer or on your phone, what happens is that the fingerprint actually stays on your computer. Nobody can go and steal it from your computer. It's kind of never really disclosed.
Is it like the most secure way of
it's one of the most secure ways of protecting your data. And then what happens is that the computer generates a unique token to confirm that it identified you. And you actually have to physically have that computer or that phone in front of you in order to connect. It doesn't help you when you're traveling, but this is where having your mobile does help you.
I'm keen to understand how, everybody has a computer these days.
Yep.
Almost everyone in the world. Does everybody need to have Norton antivirus in their computer?
Antivirus is a good idea. Not necessarily just Norton. There are different antivirus companies. Antivirus is a good idea on your computer. Although, for example, Macs are much less prone to receiving viruses than Windows computers, and that's simply to do with the way the operating system has been architected. Windows architecture is much more friendly to viruses and viruses spreading than a Unix architecture, which is at the core of the computer. Also, there's almost no viruses on, for example, things like Apple iPhones or Apple iPads, because Apple so tightly controls the ecosystem of the software that goes onto those devices that it's impossible to get a virus on those devices. So you don't necessarily need the antiviruses. But one of the ways to protect yourself from getting viruses in the first place, it could be the antivirus software, but it could be simple, smart way of how you're dealing with incoming emails on which websites you're visiting. If you browse unsavory websites, they're likely to infect your computer with something. If you click on every email that comes your way and don't use your judgment, then that you're likely to contract a virus. It's best to communicate with people you know and to respond and receive communications that you expect. That's much more likely to keep you secure.
I want to talk about cybersecurity and AI.
Yeah.
Before we talk about that, I was just got reminded about this event that happened recently in the world where we had a major breakdown of a software that affected like airports and what was the name of it again? CrowdStrike. And, there was questions about whether Microsoft is doing its job to protect its technology and software. Are we going to be expecting to see more of that happen?
We are, and it's got nothing to do with either cybersecurity or AI.
Good, because that was the next question. Is going to be is it related to like a scam or
that specific event had absolutely nothing to do with a cybersecurity, other than the fact that CrowdStrike is a cybersecurity company. But the event itself was not a cybersecurity event, nor was it an AI event.
Was it just a breakdown?
It was just a simple breakdown, human error. Somebody pushed out a faulty piece of software to many, many computers and ended up turning them into bricks and had its simple human error.
So can AI enhance cybersecurity?
Absolutely.
How?
So one of the challenges that we have in cybersecurity world is, in order to find that somebody has broken in to your computer or your computer network, there is tons and tons of data that needs to be processed. Simply as humans, we are not able or capable to process that data and find the anomaly. We usually look for places where people can break in and check whether they have or not. But we can't observe all of the network traffic. That's a lot of data. What AI is capable of doing is processing huge amounts of data and finding patterns. And this is where AI can safeguard company networks. It can enhance the way your antivirus systems work as well by inspecting more data and providing better output, better results on what is failing and why is it failing. Is this a bad actor? Is it a virus? Is it somebody exploiting your computer? So that's one of the things. Equally, like we've talked about AI being used by bad actors to send scam emails, there is more and more AI being used in spam filters to figure out which incoming communication is likely to be scam or not. And AI can figure it out much better nowadays as well.
Can you predict if you're going to get a cyber attack? Before it happens, can AI help us analyze patterns and predict potential cyber attacks before they happen?
It can, and it does every day. There's a lot of cybersecurity firms that are offering what is called SOCs, which is security centers, where actually AI is looking at and analyzing a lot of logs from different computers and different computer network devices and figures out when the cyber attack is about to happen.
You're an author as well.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
So I've written 2 books. My first book was the one I've written last year. It was a bit of a bucket list book. I started writing it 12 years ago because I wanted to lay down some theories and theses I have about the way technology develops and AI develops and how it will impact our society. And then when ChatGPT came out and this whole new wave of AI revolution, I thought I have to finish it. So I finished writing it. The book is called Enslaving Freedom, the Libertarian Utopia of Planet Fourth. And was going to self-publish it late last year, but I sent the query to a publisher in the US and they came back saying, "Oh, that looks like an interesting manuscript." And so I've been waiting for more than 6 months now for them to come back to me and tell me when they're going, or if they're even going to take it on. But everybody in the publishing world told me if a publisher wants to publish it, let them do it. It's probably a better thing than doing it yourself, especially with this book target audience being mostly in the US.
Why did you wait 12 years before you decided to finish the book?
Well, that's what a lot of people do. You know, more than 80% of us have a book in us, and probably less than 1% of people actually sit down and write one and publish one. I started writing it 12 years ago. I wrote a few chapters, but English is not my first language, and so writing a book was really, really hard. So what I found is when ChatGPT came out, I actually used ChatGPT to help me arrange the words on the page. Otherwise, it would have been another 12 years before I'd publish it.
And you've got another book in the making.
Yeah, and since I've written the first book and I had some good reviews from advanced readers, they gave some great feedback. I've started working with a number of companies and helping them with their sales and sales process. And I've realized that actually I want to write down the different sales theories that I've learned over the last 20 years in a one manuscript. So I can actually, initially I thought I'd want to write something to give to my clients.
Okay.
But then listening to all these sales gurus imparting advice in the sales books, I thought, well, I'm not good enough to write a sales book because I haven't done these multi-billion-dollar deals like all of them boast about. And then I thought, I've just acquired this great skill of storytelling, and I can actually write a fiction book, which is interesting to read as opposed to a dry business book. And so I sat down and I wrote the first draft of a book that I called Unasked Question. And it's a fictionary story of a fictionary company in Auckland with the CEO of this company used to be a CTO and became an accidental CEO. And he literally runs the company into the ground. He cannot handle the way to grow the company and make sales. And then he has to learn the sales techniques and play out different scenarios on pulling the company out of the brink, pulling himself out of the brink of bankruptcy.
What are the 3 golden rules for technologists to learn about sales?
Well, rule number 1, ask questions. And rule number 2, listen. We've got 1 mouth and 2 ears for the reason. It's not the other way around. And rule number 3, understand what problem that you're trying to solve with your technology. One of my pet peeves with technologists is they try and bring a $500 solution to a $100 problem. And that doesn't stack up. But often it's not obvious that it is like that. And finding out the size of the problem and the size of the solution is something I find is the most important skill in technologists to be able to sell technology to everyday business people.
Well, that's quite profound because that's going to probably help a lot of people who are struggling in terms of their sales figures. Talking about struggles, what are some of the biggest struggles that you've gone through in your career that you kind of couldn't get over?
I've had a number of struggles in my business career. One of the early struggles was in my first business. My business partner and I, who we're still friends to this day, but there was a time where we just couldn't see eye to eye and couldn't decide on the business direction to take the business in. And we were fortunate enough that we found a willing buyer for the business, so we were able to sell and turn what could have been a train wreck into a success. But that was one of the early lessons for me, that it is very important before you go into business with someone to understand that you're actually compatible and that you can actually work together well, and that you have shared vision for the business. It's very important to have those things in place. That was my early struggle. My next struggle was with my second business when GFC hit and our sales started tanking. And at the same time, some of my early successes with selling the first business, I was able to invest in my own home. I was able to buy some investment properties. But I've made some real bad mistakes with investment property investments. And so suddenly during GFC, my hugely negatively geared investment portfolio was costing me about as much as the income that I was able to scrape out of the business where the profits were taking. And that was around the same time when I had my first child. And so our entire budget for our first child's birth was about, we could spend $1,000 on all the things for the child. That was just the top amount. And we were really living from month to month as a family, trying to put a face out there of a successful businessman running the successful company when scraping pennies at home and struggling and living from month to month. It was really, really, really hard.
What was that like?
It was very tough. I think ultimately it cost me my marriage. It put a lot of strain on me and my ex-wife. She had to carry a lot of the fallout of it at home. She also happened to work in the business, so she understood what was happening. I didn't have to explain to her. I didn't have to make any promises. And she understood the consequences if we didn't just pull through. But it was, a lot of this was my decisions, and unfortunately that was putting a lot of strain on our relationship.
I'm sure that people who do watch at the moment and now, listening can identify with that type of struggle and that type of pressure. In fact, there's, as we speak, there's a lot of burnout going on. There's a lot of stress going on, especially with the economy and how things are going. A lot of businesses are struggling. And no doubt there will be relationships that are under strain. And, you having come from that unfortunate experience, what are some of what can you speak into the lives of people who, the wife or the husband owning the business and working together, and especially when they face, hefty costs and, making it very expensive to live and things like that. How would you counsel them, talk them through it?
Well, I think knowing that you're not alone and it's not just you is important. Reaching out for help, talking is important. Finding someone who can advise you and counsel you through this tough situation is important. But also in a relationship, a lot of it is about open communication. So having an open and honest communication with your partner is important. You may be putting a front as a successful businessman out there in the market. Don't bring it home. When you come home, you need to be pretty straight up and open about what's going on. Don't worry about overburdening your partner with all your problems. Actually, people appreciate knowing what's going on. It's better to know the full picture than to be lied to or pretend that everything's fine while things are falling apart. So, to me, open communication is important, and having people to talk to. It's also quite good to have mentors in your life. I was very fortunate with Vodacom, with my company, and part of it was luck, part of it was making the right decision. And I had a very good board of directors, and some of the people who were directors on the board were very experienced business people and were able to coach me through the situation. They all had similar situations in their life. They understood what I was going through. So I had always had someone to turn to, someone to talk to. People like Andrew Wallace, for example. I'm grateful to this day. He was a great mentor to me. Mike Harvey, who built his own IT company and sold it, and he was on the board and helping me through situation. Brian Lawrence. So having those people interested and invested in your success, seeing your struggle, understanding where you're at, and providing you with guidance or just a sounding board was invaluable.
Do you keep a journal?
No, I do not.
Why?
Never occurred to me that it would give me much of a benefit.
If you did have a journal, what would you be journaling on today?
That's a good question. I got this thing on my iPhone that pops up every night saying time to do some journals. Sometimes I put some pictures of my family and things that I do with the family. I don't know about journaling. I channel my creativity in a different way. I don't feel the need to record or journal things that I do, but it's maybe something that I should consider. I don't know.
Well, Igor, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.